Before we start, here are some notes. This guide is intended for players who have unlocked a few war bones already and have an experience playing at higher difficulties. This guide and loadout are based on the assumption that you are trying to fully clear the map, but it's not dependent on the number of players you have. Though I have not tested it solo, I did test it with a duo. It's also assuming you are trying to complete the objectives with randoms and no communication. If you can communicate well with your team, or if you're all friends, you probably won't need this guide. Yes, this guide will include meta options to help you survive and win. I do not cover all the options, nor am I saying that these tips and tricks are the only viable solutions for this mission. This is just covering the loadout I typically use that has been mostly successful for me. There are many other variations with weapons and armors that could work. I will not be really covering Illuminates, but I will give my assumed loadout since I have little experience with it, but do not take my word for it. If you just want to see my exact loadout and skip all the explanations and stuff like that, you can just skip to this timestamp. For Automatons, you want any heavy armor that has the provide 50% resistance to explosive damage passive, also known as fortified. So, for example, the Kodiak, the Marksman, the Battlemaster, the Executioner, the Devastator, or the Bulwark. Bots are obviously the most explosive faction, which is why we are looking for that specific stat, and heavy armor in general will help you stay alive more often and take more hits. Some players don't realize just how helpful heavy armor is when you are constantly ragdolled and unable to stim because of it. While yes, being slow sucks, you do not want to end up in a situation, especially against bots, when you're getting endlessly ragdolled until death. For weapons, you want to prioritize stuff that has medium armor penetrating, infinite ammo, or group damage. For example, the crossbow, the eruptor, coyote, purifier, sweeper, or punisher plasma. For secondaries, I would recommend the ultimatum, missile pistol, talon, or senator. I personally use the eruptor alongside the ultimatum because it just tends to help me more often deal with a group of patrols or group of bots that are coming in from a bot drop. Keep in mind though, if both your primary and secondaries are explosive, you have to be careful with enemies at close range. The armor is helpful, but it won't stop you from blowing yourself up if you shoot an enemy directly in front of you. For grenade, I would recommend thermite, shield grenade, or gas/stun. Thermite is the best grenade in my opinion and the one I use frequently, but the others can be helpful with crowd control and mitigating damage. Now, onto stratagems. Stratagems are the most important part for this mission to succeed. If things go well, you won't even need to use your weapons when raising the flag. My recommended stratagems are the Emancipator Exosuit, Supply Backpack, Rocket Sentry, and then the Quasar or EMS motor. Now you may be asking why? Well, an exosuit is basically required for all factions with this strategy. It makes it infinitely easier, and especially if your teammates have it too. For bots, I suggest the Emancipator specifically because its autocannons have usually been the best to deal with them. As you can see from the gameplay in the background, I have mostly been using Emancipator at each flag. For Supply Backpack, I know this takes away the movement backpack slot, but while yes, you're going to be slower, the point of this mission is to hold the flag, and you're going to need all the stims you can get. And it's also helpful with spamming grenades, especially if you have thermite. When we get into the strategy, I'll explain further, but once again, keep in mind that this isn't required. You are free to choose whatever backpack you like or whichever stratagems. Now, the Rocket Sentry. No other sentry performs as well against the bots as this one. It can solo a factory shredder. If that's not enough to convince you, then you probably shouldn't be playing on level 10. The Rocket Sentry is immensely helpful, but only if you set it up properly. But don't worry, I'll cover that too, since it can be pretty hard locating a good spot for a sentry. Finally, the Quasar or EMS. Yes, I know the Quasar can be boring, but we are not trying to be quirky, we are trying to survive. The Quasar does not require a backpack and has infinite ammo while also being an anti-tank. If we would rather not take it, other options could be the railgun, the EAT, or heavy machine gun. There are many more options to use, especially with a supply backpack. I personally use the EMS motor more often since it's really helpful with crowd control, just like the stun grenade, and a stun bot is a bot that's not shooting at you, which makes it easier to kill them all inside your exosuit. For Terminids, you want any heavy armor that protects against elementals. Some medium armors can work too. For example, Federation's Blade, Salamander, Hazmaster, or Dutiful. Bugs are really weak to elementals, and also have some of their own, so any armor that can negate that or help you survive any effects you're causing is good. Now for weapons. Similar to Automatons, I'd suggest Eruptor, Crossbow, Coyote, Double-Edged Sickle, Last 5 Scythe, Purifier. Just remember that bugs obviously like to get up close and personal and will be much faster than bots. For a secondary, I will only suggest the Ultimatum unless you are great at aiming with the missile pistol in unguided mode. For grenades, I would suggest a Giga Grenade or a gas/incendiary grenade. I don't find myself needing thermites, especially when I have the Ultimatum and Giga Grenades, which have been better for heavy enemies and especially the Biotitan. Now, Stratagems. This will be almost exactly the same except for some small tweaks. We're going to use the Lumberer exosuit instead of the Emancipator, but if you do not have that, then obviously Emancipator is still a great option. I would still recommend the Supply Backpack or an Elemental support weapon. Then there would be the Gatling Sentry or Tesla Tower, and finally Incendiary Mines. I chose the Lumberer exosuit specifically because bugs are weak to fire, and the anti-tank is really helpful against Biotitans and other heavy enemies. The Supply Backpack is for the same reason as I mentioned earlier, though I do not use it myself and often prefer using the Cremator, which is obviously a flamethrower, but it does take up a backpack slot instead. I suggest the Gatling Sentry or Tesla Tower since it's an extra teammate to thin out the horde and to distract the bugs, and finally the Incendiary Mines are good to keep your teammates near the flag and the bugs away from it. Once you're at the flag, do not call it in immediately. First, make sure your resupply is off cooldown, then call it in as close to the flag point as possible. If it is on cooldown, but your extra supply backpack is not, you can use that instead. Next is sentries. Try to look for a space with a clear open view so it can shoot directly at bots or whatever front you are on near the flag, but distant enough that enemies would rather target players than target it. You'd be surprised at how far you can put a rocket sentry. If there are indestructible walls around, like Automaton Outpost, you can use that to your advantage as well. If you have mines, you want to throw those after the flag and the bug breach starts, so you can throw it on top of said bug breach. Finally, you can call down your exosuit. Conveniently, you have 3 exosuits per mission, and guess what? There's only 3 flags. The exosuit, if used properly, should last you the entire flag. If not, then at least to about 3/4 done. If your teammates aren't already, you should be targeting anything that can disable an arm or one-shot you. Basically, all heavy enemies on any front. Do not sit still. Yes, you need to be near the flag, but you should walk in circles or stray from left to right to minimize any accuracy from bots or from bugs attacking and take less damage. But remember, focus on keeping your arms alive, not on not taking damage. It doesn't make sense, but believe me, you want to make sure you use every ounce of ammo you can. You shouldn't be conserving ammo so that it's usable after the flag has been raised. That should only be a bonus if it went well. Simply put, it doesn't matter how damaged your exosuit is, as long as you have your arms, you'll be fine. If you have a decent enough team, you should realistically never have to use your weapons and can solely rely on the exosuit. But obviously, we can't expect every teammate to be great, so that's what the rest of the loadout is for. My one rule when it comes to raising the flag, always stay in range. I do not care if you are the last person left. If reinforcements are at 0, then you'll probably die anyway, so best to go down fighting for the objective. Now, why would I commend you to certain death? Simply because there is a chance you can survive. Once the flag has been fully raised, there is no more alerts, no more breaches. All you have to do is kill off the remaining enemies near the flag. Yes, easier said than done, but it's better than leaving and returning to do it all over again, because as you should know, the flag will start to lower quickly after you exit its range. The best way to beat this mission is to raise the flag in one go. The more time you spend, the less resources you have, and that will also take away from being able to full clear the rest of the map, which is where the supply backpack comes to play. If you are fully topped off before the flag starts, you should realistically have about 12 stims to use in total, along with the survivability of heavy armor. You are built to stay in the range and hold it off without dying. If you do not have an exosuit anymore, you should be trying to shoot down enemies with your weapons before they get close. If you have explosive weapons, then running around and stimming is even more prevalent. If it ever gets to that stage, you are entirely reliant on your sentries and teammates to get the horde down to a level where you can stop and engage safely. This will happen sometimes. It's not the usual outcome, but with Helldivers, you should always expect to be unlucky. The only exception I would allow is if it's getting too hard to hold and most of the team agrees to disengage. But you have to make the call quickly and commit to the decision. You can even take it upon yourself to go someplace safe and call in reinforcements when the teammates die, so you can try again as a group after you clear the enemies already there from afar. Cyborgs is a whole different level of difficulty. Anyone who was on Cyberstan knows just how much harder it was. Regardless, this loadout strategy can still work well even as a duo, but I'd recommend having the railgun over the Quasar so you can deal with Vox engines better, and definitely have the Ultimatum as your secondary. Keep in mind that you can still kill a Vox engine with a thermite grenade as long as you throw the thermite at the spot a grenade is supposed to enter. It will phase through and blow up the Vox. As another tip, any agitator you see, please shoot down immediately. Not only do they buff nearby automatons, but once you kill it, it will also stun all automatons that were being buffed. And that's all the tips and tricks I have for this video. So hopefully these help you out there in the field when you're trying to do arguably the hardest mission in the game currently. And I'll see you out there, Helldiver.